If you've worked a full-time job before, I'm sure you can agree with me that work life was very different to what we expected as students. School or university doesn't really prepare us to what work life will really be. So this got me thinking, how different would things be had I known just a few key things that are so important to life now as a working professional? Whether you're a student or a current young professional yourself, I hope some of the things I'll be talking about today can be helpful for you, or at least you can resonate with them. So I studied engineering, specializing in mechanical engineering, and since graduating have worked as a management consultant for 3 years. So here are the top 4 things that I've learned as a working professional, which I really wish I knew as a student. Starting with an obvious one, which I'm sure you've all heard before, but may not take very seriously still, is personal finance. Savings, budgeting, and taxes. Let's simply say, in my first year of work, I saved very little money. Now, that's not to say that I was reckless or careless with my finances, but it's scary to see just how easy it is to not save money when you don't have a plan. Obviously, the shock and horror of looking in my savings and seeing that I really didn't save as much as I thought at the end of the year was an instigator for me to really get on top of my finances. But another factor that helped out was obviously my brother and older friends of mine giving me personal advice about how they ended up saving significant amounts of their money. The very baseline advice that I got was something that is called the rule of thirds. Now, I'm no personal financial advisor, I'm not saying that you must do this, but this is simply a piece of advice that helped me on my journey of personal finance. So the rule of thirds is essentially you should spend nothing more than a third on things to do with your accommodation and living expenses. So that's your accommodation, your utilities, electricity, all things like that. So essentially, if your income is say $60,000 a year, then you technically shouldn't be spending anything more than $20,000 a year on accommodation. And then the second third would be to do with your day-to-day activities and food costs. So the other third is, just eating out, buying groceries, your transport and everything like that, just everything else. And then the final third is savings. Try your best to save a third of your income if possible. So the key takeaway about this first point was to just have an interest in finance. You don't have to be a guru, just start to get curious about taxes, about savings, because let's be honest, you don't know how life will change and unexpected things happen. Having savings is a very important thing to do. So the second point that I want to talk about is possibly one of the most important points here, because I really think that there is a lack at school or university in understanding what jobs are actually out there in the world and understanding what people actually do in these roles. This is a tricky one because I remember as a student being frustrated with not knowing, what professionals did, and I would ask around and I wanted to find out, and I did online research, and I just didn't feel like there was much information available to me. But now looking back, I honestly didn't give it the effort that it did deserve. And now that I have entered the workforce, I see friends branching into jobs that they didn't expect or they didn't know existed, but are amazing. Very well paid or great work-life balance. They get to use their talents and skills, and they have a high level of job fulfillment. So my key piece of advice here is to really go out there and talk to people. A big resource that I really failed to use as a student was, I used to go to friends' houses all the time, and occasionally the parents would be there. And my friends' parents all did very unique jobs, and I never really took the time to really speak to those people and ask them, hey, what do you do in your day-to-day? What do you do as a computer scientist? What do you do as a graphic designer? And this can really open your eyes and help you create a plan of how you will actually approach your career. I really, wish I knew as a student more about what jobs are out there, how to get into them, and what people actually do in their jobs. Now this third one might be a little bit of a curveball, and it's sleep. For me, sleep was the most important thing that I realized I did not really prioritize as a student, but is so important as a working professional. As a student, I remember I felt like a superhuman. I felt like I didn't really need sleep. Essentially, I used to get very little sleep just because I could. And the next day, I'd feel tired sometimes, but I still didn't feel like it was holding me back. I was still having fun. I felt energized. It was doable. Now, once you start work, that's a completely different story. Obviously, your priorities change, and the stresses of work are very different to the stresses as a student. You need sleep to maintain your immune system, and your mood, and mental clarity, and I truly felt the effects of that in my work. So the key takeaway from this, that I'm not only preaching, but I'm trying to practice and improve myself, is how sleep is a habit, and you really need to get into a good routine of it and be disciplined with sleep. And work performance and everything else will really benefit from having good sleep habits. To wrap things all up, the final thing that I really wish that I had a better grasp of as a student is networking and the power of just meeting people. The fundamental element of what a job is that it's value exchange. You're providing a service to your community or to society and essentially earning a financial or monetary compensation for your time, your skills, talents, etc., etc. And when you think about that, you realize that you can't really know how you can provide value to people without a conversation, without knowing who's out there, knowing what their needs are, and knowing how you can work together. When I was a student, it was a buzzword. Networking, I thought it was putting on a suit, learning to look someone in the eye and stand up straight and shake their hand and say, hello, my name is Patrick, and insert elevator pitch here. But as I said before, it's truly just about expressing your talents and your value and understanding what their needs are. And having that positive mindset of thinking, how do I solve problems? How do I connect with people and really think, maybe I can provide them a service. As a student, you're more concerned with having fun. Networking seems like a chore. It seems like something that you have to do for the sake of your career. But if you think of it as in the way that I've just framed it, where it's just more about getting to know people, seeing what their needs are, seeing what their pain points are, and keeping that in the back of your mind for future reference, then networking is kind of like your superpower. So maybe keep an open mind. Don't think of networking as a chore. Think of it as a positive tool and a foundational pillar of what it means to be a young professional. If you've stayed to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I know it's a bit of a long one, but these were some really key things that I really wanted to get out there, and I hope they are helpful for at least some of you. And if you have any other thoughts as a professional yourself that you think I've missed out on and I haven't mentioned, please comment them below. And if you are a student, there are things that you're more curious about and you wish that you could know more about what it means to be as a professional, then also comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.